I want to get into our next guest. Is our next guest here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have former, I don't know if he can hear me out there.
No,
I don't
he
know if the
can't.
mic is on. We have former Mount Vernon Fire Union President and Fire Commissioner Ernie Richardson and his attorney, who he will introduce us to. They're about to enter the studio, and they're going to tell you their story. They got a little story they want to tell you.
Wherever you guys want to sit.
Yes. How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Now, Ernie, I think you've been here before.
Yes.
I know your attorney hasn't been here before. And while we give everybody applause, definitely want to give you a warm welcome. People be so politics welcome. Getting right into it. Recently, Lohud wrote an article about a lawsuit this my next guest brought up against the city. And I want you to talk about that. And I advised you that it was good to have your attorney because I don't want, a lot of people just want to do shows to just get ratings and stuff. I don't want anything that would damage it. That he say anything that he can't say that might mess with his lawsuit. So we advise everybody in these situations to bring their attorney. So if he say something, he'll know to say, hey, you shut him down real quick and you speak on it, or because that's very important. Some people just want to come up here and talk and they done messed themselves up. We don't want to do that. So,
thank you for having us. I appreciate that.
No doubt. So, Ernie, I'm going to let you just get right into it. Like, the lawsuit you brought up, why you brought it up, what happened, tell your story.
I'm sorry.
What is your name again? I'm sorry.
My name is John Zidzunas. My firm is John Zidzunas and Associates. I have a practice in New York City and a practice in Montclair, New Jersey.
Okay.
All I do is employment discrimination law. So,
Okay.
I represent Ernie, and we brought the lawsuit.
Pull the mic up closer to you. I want everybody to hear you clearly. It
Thank
moves,
you.
so you can pull it. You just move it to you.
So we brought the lawsuit for a lot of reasons. We primarily to stop what was happening. So it's an ongoing, and it's been an ongoing harassment and retaliation that has been happening to my client in the workplace on a daily basis. And this started in 2016 at the time when my client was the acting fire commissioner. So he's essentially the head guy at this time, and he's being directed by the mayor, Mayor Thomas. And Mayor Thomas was asking him to return his brother back onto the department. And at that time, his brother, and as you may know this, his brother was terminated from the department, or essentially relieved the department because of his criminal investigation and charges that were brought against him for essentially possession of unlawful possession of weapons that he was having on the streets of Mount Vernon. And as a result of that indictment, he was out of work. And as a result of that, the mayor came back to my client and asked him to bring him back. And obviously that created a substantial ethical problem for my client, and it was not something he would bend for or play ball for. And that doesn't come at an easy cost. So that was the first kind of thrust of the issue of when he defied the mayor and went against him. And as you're probably aware from some of the history in town, that opposition doesn't float very well with the mayor and the administration. And the second thing became a racial issue. So the other issue that really thrusted the situation against him and has caused him this harm that has led to us to file this suit is a race issue. And what had happened is in the summer of 2016, my client was asked by the mayor and his camp to promote someone who is a African-American officer, and he was asked to do that over a Caucasian officer. So the way that this was done, of course, is not as clear, black and white. It's not necessarily by way of an email and just says, I need you to promote the black man over the white man, and that's going to be the case. There was already enough racial tension as it is, but I can tell you Mount Vernon has a custom and practice and policy at that time in that administration, which was you promote the #1 ranking officer. The #1 firefighter at that time he's now a captain. His name is Jimmy Lang. And
Deputy Chief now.
Well, he's Deputy Chief Lang. So they were asking to promote another officer named firefighter named Salahuddin over Mr. Lang. So my client refused to do that and knew that this was a race-based issue and was being asked to do that because it broke the policy. He was also less qualified. And so my client rejected that by the mayor, and that is what led to just ongoing harassment, racial-based names from fake brother. I don't know what I can and can't say on the air, but
You know what?
know,
This is
it's
the People Before
uncensored.
Politics show, where they're not afraid to say it. So there's no FCC you have to worry about,
Okay.
and this is not something.
Yeah.
The person I started the show with, he might throw some F-bombs at you sometimes.
All right.
So we're not going to do that. But you can say what you got to say.
I was a white boy lover, faggot,
Oh, yeah, you
piece
can-
of shit, fake brother. These were all the lines that were being said and continued to be said to my client really up until a few weeks ago until we filed a suit. So this all came, as I said, in total from his defiance of the mayor and his refusal to play ball and play politics and to act in an ethical way, which is a tough spot to be put in, but it's what happened.
So I just want to say now Black Westchester is familiar with all this, and I just shared the stories in the timeline on my we're broadcasting live on my Facebook page, so you can share it to your page or wherever you want if you want people to
I
see.
don't even have Facebook.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Well, it's in my timeline because we covered that story, and I can speak a little bit to the story about his brother about that incident. And I also want to say, Ernie is in what we call it, the fraternity of those who supported Rich, who no longer support him. So, which includes me and myself, and Bob and myself.
Absolutely.
But
Full
one of the
disclosure.
and we've talked about that quite clear. We were big in the campaign. So I worked alongside with Ernie and got to know him during that time. So one of the things, so that whole Henry George thing came out, and it was interesting. We covered it from the beginning to the end. January 1st, the mayor's brother swears in your old position as the union president, right?
Yes.
So January 8th, the next week, he resigns as the union president, I guess steps down from the thing because of these charges. And then we've covered this a lot with Robert Kelly, the police.
Yes.
We've covered his story a lot, which intertwines with this. So they were sending some emails, and you felt, rightfully so, that since Robert Kelly was the commissioner of public safety, which at the time included fire and police, that these actions and this conversation shouldn't even take place without him involved.
Absolutely.
And you CC'd him on the email, where then Robert Kelly said it was unethical. He didn't support it. He said absolutely not. And days later, he was fired.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So and the stories, you can go to Black Westchester. I just put the link up to the first few stories, but anybody who knows me and Damon, it's been in the paper. We've covered it extensively. So we were definitely aware of that. And then sometime later, I just posted the other story. You stepped down from, I guess, we had differences of opinion sometimes because I had left and you were still there, and
Right.
and I was like, full disclosure, but you was trying to ride it out and do what you thought was best. You was trying to stick it out.
Yeah.
And at some point, you felt, I guess, that enough was enough. You just couldn't be involved no more. So you stepped down and went back to the line with the fire department. And then, I got that story up there too. So if anybody want to read those stories, they're in a.
I want to add something, and I'll let Ernie speak to that, is that this is a personal issue as well, okay? So, and you mentioned, I think, about, I don't know if you were referring to the mayor's brother, but my mind was thinking about Ernie's brother, because in 1996, Ernest's brother was shot and killed in Mount Vernon from illegal firearms, from weapons that were on the street. So this was a
real
personal.
Quick, and Lorraine Lopez, she lost two brothers on the street of Yonkers from
Wow.
the same thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, and Bob,
I lost
Bob,
a
right?
brother, as Aaron knows, one
Yes.
of my brothers
Yes.
died of gunshot wounds.
So I just wanted so that
Aaron
we're
knows.
we're very adamant about that as well in these conversations we've had before. So
Right. So his objections are further than just sort of objecting to ethics, but he believed this, and I'll let my client speak to that. But this is a personal issue that he believed is firmly illegal. That you can't bring back someone back onto a certain public servant position such as this that serves the community. And this is a guy who, by the way, the mayor's brother at the time was selling these firearms, I think even while he was working as a fireman. So this was an ongoing thing. Just because he was charged didn't mean that it stopped. There was a certain threat to the community and the safety and the welfare of the community that existed, and he was not about to bring this guy back onto the job. and play ball for the mayor just because the mayor is asking him to do it. I think
And I think I skipped over that part. So what they were asking were he stepped down January 8th, and sometime in one of the M months, March or May, I can't remember which one it was, 2016, they wanted him put back on the books, and then he can go out on 207, and then
Right.
get the disability pension. I guess that's what it is or whatever.
Yep.
So and I don't know if get back pay or whatever. What the point is, that's the Robert Kelly, a man of integrity, who I didn't see eye to eye with in the beginning, but I have to say he is, and even Damon said a policeman's policeman. He said that one, it was illegal and unethical, and a few other adjectives he used, and he refused to do it. And where I want to go move forward, they've gotten rid of Robert Kelly, and they've gone through a few police commissioners. They got new fire people at the top right now, and somehow they got that through anyway, and he's out on 207 or whatever that is now. They actually still made that happen anyway when, you know, and we have Robert Kelly who submitted court papers, which is his testimony that it is illegal.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to, we talk about stuff like that here.
Yeah,
We talk.
this
We
is-
say what it is here.
Yeah, this is not just like his belief or subjective belief. This is, it in fact, was illegal, but also it is this type of thing. These are safety-sensitive positions. This is a position that serves a community. It's not like he was just going back to his office place at Apple. This is a very special position, and so my client would not do that. And that is set off the retaliation. And until we filed this suit, things have barely calmed down. And this has just been an ongoing thing. And I know I'll speak for Ernie that it was just enough is enough, and that's what brought it to a head.
And I also want to say Black Westchester has covered a lot of. Mount Vernon has a retaliatory nature. Ernie Davis, it was under Ernie Davis, but it's a whole lot worse under Richard Thomas. So, I mean, it didn't start with Richard Thomas, but it got a whole lot worse. We've actually been on the other end of several attempts of retaliation in several different forms. To the family, to where we live, to Damon's daughter's job, the shutting down so there's been a very retaliatory nature of this administration.
I have no doubt.
It's a very what's that word? Dictatorial or authoritarian? What's the
All those things: authoritarian, dictatorial, autocratic,
kleptocrat? Well, that was the
All
other one I
that.
just learned. That's,
corrupt.
Yeah. So, so go ahead, Ernie. I just wanted to get those things in because there's some things you might not be able to say that I can speak on. That's why I'm speaking on them. So go ahead.
So, Ern, why don't you just walk us through, firstly, the circumstances that originally led to your unexpected dismissal,
Okay.
and what kind of steps you took. Now, I do also want to say, for purpose of full disclosure, not only did I work with you personally in the Mayor Thomas's campaign, I've known you before then.
Absolutely.
We're friends. I also am longtime friends with the mayor's brother, Henry George. And I just want the audience members to know before we begin that both AJ and I, at the very least, probably Damon, I don't know, Lorraine to perhaps a lesser extent, we have actually reviewed the documentary evidence regarding the prosecution of Henry George.
Yes, I actually posted the whole thing on
so-
Black Westchester. Like I posted it so people can just read it for themselves.
So we were able to independently confirm by reviewing an indictment that had and other legal documents that had been issued
It was
by the
federal gun trafficking.
Yes.
Yeah.
by the Southern District of New York when it was under Preet Bharara's leadership, that Henry George was in fact found to be culpable for the crime of gun trafficking, as well as even mentioned in the indictment as a felon, as some sort of cocaine possession charge.
Oh, wow.
Henry George, as I said, is a longtime friend of mine. I was very disappointed to hear of Henry George's, the legal troubles that he got himself into after his brother won the mayor's office. But the reality is that we feel as journalists that we have an obligation to report the news and to in the most objective fashion. So I do want everyone to be aware of that. So why don't you firstly give us some of the circumstances surrounding the initial dispute between yourself and the Thomas administration?
Well, I think it actually started with the Henry George situation because, everything was fine. Everything was fine until, I was asked to put him back on the books without, anything, as a substance to put him back, meaning, no operation or anything. And I explained to the Thompson administration that he was entitled to a back operation to, get him back in line, because as a firefighter, myself being a firefighter, as a commissioner, I don't think it's fair that a firefighter has to retire without the job fixing him. So, we had an obligation as an administration to give him an operation.
So why don't we step back? Because you mentioned a background factor here that I'm not sure everyone is aware of. Apparently, Henry George
was hurt. He was
hurt
hurt
on the job.
He was hurt on the job. He was back full duty. When he resigned, he was full duty. No one has ever resigned, by themselves to say, I'm resigning because I'm hurt. There's a doctor that has to classify you as being hurt and deem you 207A worthy before you can resign. So he took it upon himself to say, I'm resigning because I'm hurt. Now, me again as a firefighter, understanding, the rigorous job that we do, and knowing that, he was hurt in the line of duty, we did try to fix him, which gave him an opportunity to return into a 207A realm. But he chose not to participate once he got the operation in the 207A procedures. So he totally, alleviated himself from those procedures and wanted it to just be given to him, which I wasn't willing to do. Again, we were in a position where, as an administration, we had to make a choice, and the choice was to not do what was asked of the Thomas administration to do. It was unethical, bottom line, and it was something that just wasn't, something that the fire department was willing to accept at the time. Even with Bob Kelly being the public safety commissioner, he wasn't, it was something that we weren't going to do.
So, because just correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since we reviewed the details of the story. So what happens is Henry George, during the election, is on injured reserve or something. He's not an active duty firefighter?
No, he was actually working.
He was working at the time.
The day he resigned was actually January 7th.
Right.
He was actually in the firehouse working in his group,
Mm-hmm.
and he resigned because he said he was hurt.
So
he went to work half that day and then went home.
So
he went to work that day.
He unilaterally resigned.
Mm-hmm.
But the backdrop for the resignation was the impending announcement that
Yes.
He had
was going to
already
go.
he had already been convicted.
Correct.
It was
Unbeknownst
it was sealed.
to the public.
And now this comes from Robert Kelly, word for word, quote, it was sealed. When he found out about it, he approached the mayor, and the mayor told him, in full disclosure, defending the mayor said, do what needs to be done. He didn't try to block it. He didn't try. So Robert Kelly went to go after him with the full force of the law, and he resigned before he was able to do it. And this is from Robert Kelly, who I've interviewed, who said it in the show, who's testified to it. He's got documents and court proceedings. That's what that he said happened in that order. So resigning to circumvent whatever was going to happen to him.
That's right.
And essentially to save his brother, the head of the sitting administration, the embarrassment
Correct.
of having his own sibling convicted
Right.
while on duty.
And
I guess
he stayed out of
charged.
it. Yeah.
Right.
And he got flack for staying out of it. I mean, it was a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation for the mayor. Because if he got involved, they would have been cover up, and he got family members and stuff saying, "Yo, you ain't got his back," and
Right.
it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't. To be fair to him.
So Henry George resigned, and then what happened?
Henry George resigned on the 7th. I became the deputy commissioner on January 11th. I was sworn in, and I would say a few days after that, all hell broke loose. You got to put me back. I need my paycheck. And it was just a constant flow of the phone calls during pay week. the threats from the father. If you don't do it,
Mayor Thomas's father.
Mayor Thomas's father. If you don't do it, we put somebody in here that will do it. And to me, listen, I took a leave of absence from being a firefighter because, I had to protect myself. The deputy commissioner's job was given to me. I earned my fire department job, and I wasn't willing to give that away. So I had a little bit of a security blanket. Whereas
you had a year.
I had 1 year.
I was at the council meeting when they voted on it. And
Yes,
you had
a year.
Yeah.
Some people that get those jobs, they don't have any protection, so they're put in a position that either you have to play ball or lose your job. I had a luxury. I'm very comfortable in turnout gear, and I made it clear. So, my office, even as commissioner, I didn't even settle in. It was just a day-to-day thing for me because I knew that after all of this Henry George thing was happening, knowing how Henry George is, that it wasn't gonna just go away.
Can I ask, before the decision, before you were informed that you were going to be hired as the deputy commissioner, did the mayor or any of his representatives insinuate to you that the payoff to them for hiring you was for you to be prepared to absolve Henry George of
Not
the
one
charges
time.
and reinstate
No,
him?
the mayor was, the mayor and our relationship was very close because he had just won the election.
Right.
I was a big push behind him, being union
We do know
president,
that.
and Local 107 being a driving force, in his election. And and like Bob, like you said, we know it. Everybody knows everybody in Mount Vernon. I grew up with the Thomases.
Right.
I grew up, spending the night on California Road and those things. So I knew him personally. So it was more to it than the Henry George thing. I thought I earned the right to be the deputy commissioner. So, I learned very quick that, with that job comes,
I think that's a fair question that you're asking is was this a quid pro quo? Was
Yes.
it, okay, we're going to bring you in and you're going to take the top seat, but we got something coming
That we need
right
you to
now
do,
that's
right.
live and hot, and are you going to take care
Play
of us
ball.
back?
Right.
Right.
All right, and so I think that's fair, and I know that wasn't the case.
Right. And the only reason I ask is because this is part of a broader pattern that Mayor Thomas has exhibited over the course of his administration, whether it's explicit or tacit. It seems that many of the persons who are selected to serve in high office are expected to do the mayor's political bidding eventually. We see this in a number of controversies and resignations, from Sean Patterson Howard to the former
Rick Polk.
Rick Polk,
Right.
to many others. That's just to name a couple of high-profile instances. It seems like the mayor often is trying to use personnel, his executive personnel, to advance his political agenda. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity
I totally
to speak
understand.
to it.
Yeah. And it was constant, like you guys know, and it got to a point where, I had to make a decision, and my decision was basically, am I going to crawl out of here on my hands and knees begging for mercy, or I'm going to walk out of here with my own dignity?
And full disclosure, I was harassing you for at least a month or two, way before 3 months.
Yes.
Yo, step down, get out of
Yes.
that. I'm like, yo,
You
what
were.
are you doing? Like I was blowing your phone up. Like
You
I'm
were.
sure that you
I
didn't
do remember, AJ. I remember, but I mean, I thought I had to, I thought I was there for the best interest of the mayor, and I wanted to make sure that I was in a position to make sure, coming from the fire side, that everything was going to be on the up and up, because there were a lot of other things happening in the city. It had nothing to do with the fire department. So I wanted to make sure he was fully protected, with the ethical values of the fire department and the way that we moved, while I was there. And sometimes people don't want that. They want what they want.
He ran on public safety. He ran hard on public safety, the police and the fire. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just so we're clear, there have been other incidents where firefighters have been accused of some sort of wrongdoing, and the administration has had to administer a punishment. The perhaps most egregious example that we've seen recently is the case of the Figueroa firefighter,
Nothing's happened to him.
who apparently was arrested in the city of New Rochelle,
Impersonating a police officer.
impersonating a police officer. He had a Mount Vernon shield and some other things.
Well, we don't know. I mean, I'm going to speak from a
Mhm.
brotherly standpoint. We don't know those full circumstances behind and we don't know. I don't, that's something that I'm not going to speak on here.
Okay, no,
And yeah.
I'm not asking you
But
to
no,
speak
right.
on. We're public reporting.
There was a
it.
point that he was making, and the point is that the son of a large campaign donor,
Right.
Joseph Spezio, that's his son. Figueroa is a friend with Spezio. A friend of Spezio. His son got in trouble, and nothing has happened to him. There's been no discipline of anything. A lot of people have lost their jobs over less than that. You know what I'm saying? And there's been, I think he got his little suspension. He went back on the line. I know actively he is working. You know what I'm saying? And,
We do have a union job, so
But-
yeah, no,
we don't-
There's
there's a
so
due
many
process.
days with that they can just take you off the job without doing anything.
there's a due process,
Yeah.
definitely.
We don't want to hold you to account, but rather, what I want to ask you is just to make it plain to the audience, why Henry George's
Hello, Spezio. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
why Henry
So,
George's infraction was so serious that it would require his dismissal from the fire department when people who have, I don't want to say equally, but who have also had serious
But Henry George was
accusations.
convicted
Right.
and pled guilty.
Right.
But other guys still, I don't even know if his trial has even come up or anything yet.
I mean,
You know what I'm saying? Like nobody, but he was convicted and pled guilty
To weapons trafficking.
to weapon trafficking
Right.
with the feds.
that's the difference.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's the difference. If a guy's in trouble, the fire department, it's always, we suspend you, maybe with pay, without pay.
But I
pending
think 30
outcome
days
of
is the most that you
Right,
so you-
right. But then
Same thing
you
with the
become
police, I
desk
think,
duty.
too, yeah.
Right. Then you said desk duty, pending the outcome of your investigation. So it's not one of those slam dunks, you're out of here type of thing. There's like I was saying, there's a due process, and everything that happens with anybody that's employed, as a firefighter in the city of Mount Vernon. And I'm not going to speak of firefighter because of me being a union president. I can't speak on other, entities of the city,
Right.
police, DPW. I can't speak on those. I can only speak from a standpoint of me being union president, understanding that there's a due process in everything that happens when it comes to discipline with a firefighter officer in the fire department.
Now, because of time, I want you to move forward. So, beyond all of those things, there were things that happened more recently that led to a point of a lawsuit.
Right.
And then you call them out in a lawsuit, and I wanted to be spoken about.
Just a constant harassment from two fire officers, Captain St. John and Chief Salahuddin. And the history is deep when it comes to Salahuddin, and I say over a 10-year span. And I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the most recent stuff of him constantly not understanding that, you just can't do what you want to people below you. There is a way as a professional officer that you are to deal with people. And the fire department, they have lost its way. With the administration that we have, they have lost its way, and they are allowing officers to go after people just for the bare reason of because they can, and it's personal. That is not okay.
Well, it starts at the top.
Absolutely.
When you have disorder at the top, it trickles down to every facet of everything. Like if you don't have order, if you got dysfunction and corruption or whatever it is you want to call it at the top, that's going to trickle down
Yes.
everywhere. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is funny enough is that this was being investigated by outside counsel, so outside law firms at the time. We had already connected with them. He had already, with my firm, had already reached out to them, advised them, and put them on notice of these claims that were coming and historically what has happened, and this is giving rise to a major lawsuit. And they did their due diligence as far as investigating it on their side. And ironically, even during that period, it almost got physical between between Ernie and Salahuddin
St. John.
and with St. John directly, and another incident involving Salahuddin, a sort of intimidating, pressuring type of situation. So this is something that, like as you said, it came to a boil, and it had to be stopped that way. But they were on notice of it. So you would think, I think what you're saying is one would calm it down. In fact, they kind of turned it up. And you would think, and because there's a lack of discipline, there's a lack of good rank and order in the department, is maybe what emboldens people to think that you can do these things. And so this is what happens, and this is him being the pariah. Ernie has become a pariah since he spoke out and did this since it started in 2016 up until he filed the suit.
And I wanted to speak to it because to a lot of residents, it's just another of many lawsuits against the city. Like, oh, we need another lawsuit. And I
Right.
know that you're someone who has strong ties to the community, and I know this must have been a difficult decision to do this. With all the lawsuits, when you were with the administration and since you've been,
Right.
you've seen a lot of that to take this action. Like, this wasn't just the first thing that you did.
No.
I know enough about you to know that. And I wanted
Right.
to bring out, that's what I want to bring out so people can hear that.
I tried to follow the proper steps. When the harassment started on my first day back at work with St. John telling me your ass is mine, I'm your fucking boss now. I mean, just those things. And then he's telling people that we're cool. No, we're not. We were never cool like that. At one point, he's always been my boss, and we were cordial, and I respected him as an officer because he was that.
Your spirit.
Now, since I forced him as a commissioner to do his job, when he was not doing the right thing as an employee of the city, stealing money, okay, and now I forced him to do his job, it became personal towards me. And, I went to the commissioner, I went to the chief of operations at the time, which was Chief Everett, and I tried to alleviate anything that had to do with a lawsuit because, again, I'm from Mount Vernon, I'm born and raised here, my family pay taxes in this city, so it's going to affect them, but I should have the right to come to work in a non-hostile environment. With everything that we're dealing with as firefighters, that's a hostile environment within itself. 1 minute we could be sitting down, next week we could be crawling down a smoky hallway with the ceiling falling on us. So, the stress of that alone should be enough as firefighters to understand that, why would you put added stress on a man or a woman in that matter to come to work and to have to worry about you bothering them? And that was the main basis of me constantly trying to document, go to the commissioner, go to the chief, making sure that they understood, like, this is really tearing me down inside. Like, stressing me out. I called out sick more than I ever called out sick in my career or last year just to stay away from him, just not so I don't have to deal with him because I had other personal things going on. And it just created such stress on me to the point where, I almost had a nervous breakdown. So, again, we all should have the right to not be, harassed in the work area and then not have any type of outlet to have it dealt with because it just felt like it was falling on deaf ears. So to me, it felt like St. John was getting his orders from a higher authority because if the administration couldn't stop him, where was it coming from? So, it was constant. We asked for an investigation back in September all the way up until now. And things have happened within that time during the investigation. Now that the lawsuit is here, I'm like, oh, Ernie's the bad guy. Ernie's this. Ernie's just a man. I want to go to work and not be bothered. And I live my life in a way of, I'm not going to hope you leave me alone. I'm going to make you. And physically, I couldn't make them. So I had to do something that was legally right.
And I want to add this too, for the listeners. I have given Ernie every opportunity to speak up against Richard Thomas and the administration, and Ernie has been that, even when wronged in certain situations, this is a last avenue. He never wanted to do this, like even come on the show to talk about this, or have an article written about it. He really just wanted to handle it internally. He didn't want, I've opened the door several times, and he did not want to handle it this way. So for him to be here says a lot. And I just want the people that are listening and watching this to know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this ain't just like I just opened the door today. Like, I've been opening the door for 2 years, literally, and you did not want to take this avenue. Like, you said, nah, I'm not going to do that. If I ever feel that way, I'll let you know. Like, you always is like, nah. And then I was like, do you got a quote? Do you want to say, nah, I'm not going to speak on it publicly. I'm going to handle it internally. So this is my experience with you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I just want that to be known. So,
I wanted to ask Ernie, in addition to, was there any other thing you had to endure in addition to or besides the verbal harassment? Did it extend to other actions?
I mean, the physical part of it, no. Because, listen, I mean, no one's gonna let anybody do anything to them.
All right, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, man. I ain't ready to bang out with you, so you look like you got a little heft with you.
I mean, yeah, but at the end of the day, you know, I knew once it continued, it was more than that because physically, it wasn't nothing gonna happen to me from them. So I knew it was more of the fact that do something to me so you can lose your job, and you know, now you want to take food out of my family's mouth because you have a personal vendetta against me, and your push and your drive and your evil ways to try to get me to do that just created more stress on top of me. So my way of fighting you wasn't going to be a physical. It became the law side of it. And, you know, I've learned to not to retreat, but to fight a different direction. And that's what I'm doing right now. And there, you know, I'm going to fight them like hell from this point, you know, along with my attorney. But the thing is, I never wanted to go this route. You know, that is not who I am. But I'm a man that, you know, is entitled to not being harassed by coming to work every day. In the department not doing anything. And I can say that because had they done a little bit, and I don't mean telling them to stop, I mean a little reprimand, anything. Because when you harass somebody, you know, something needs to happen. Those guys are riding around and working every day like nothing ever happened.
So you mean to tell me you filed a complaint? You filed a formal complaint?
Yes.
With the mayor's office and with the office of the equal opportunity officer, I believe would be the position that's responsible for the administration of non-discrimination laws.
Right.
And they took no formal action? Did they conduct a formal investigation and reach any formal findings?
He complained about this in the past. He complained about it again, and he wrote them a letter, and no action was taken. And then they finally called it for an investigation. They brought in counsel. Counsel ran up an investigation. We don't get to see that, and we'll seek to see that in discovery. In this lawsuit, we haven't seen the findings and the conclusions of that report. I will presume there's nothing sustained in that report or whatever, and there was a no, willingness by them to stop this. And as I said, then other acts happened as far as an intimidating act by Salahuddin. There was a physical act with St. John that happened literally the day of that counsel was walking out of the office. So, meaning they were just done interviewing witnesses for the defense side, different members of the department, and at that time, I think within an hour or two later, it almost got physical with St. John coming direct and for my client. So nothing was concluded out of that, and in the end, nothing got done in any of our private discussions, to the point that he had to file the lawsuit. So it's either that or because the harassment was ongoing. His career has been derailed. He has no way to remedy that unless he goes and files a claim and seeks damages for that. And the workplace situation wasn't changing, so where are you left? So that is what placed him in a point of no return to file. It wasn't like, as you said, he tried channels. He tried prior to me knowing, working with an attorney. And obviously he's been complaining about this since 2016. Right. I mean, that's where this starts from, is him rebuffing the mayor and saying, I'm not going to do what you're asking me to do. And that's what cascaded this entire event.
Now, I know Lorraine, I just want to say, I know she's listening to this whole conversation. It got all to do with Mount Vernon. And she's like, she don't know half the people we talking about. But from the outside listening, from the outside looking in, hearing anything, do you have any question about what's going on? I know, I want to hear your perspective. If you have any questions.
No, I just had a question. Do you still work for the fire department?
I do.
You're
I do.
active duty?
I do. I still go to work. Again, I have an obligation, and my obligation is to my family, and in making sure that we can make ends meet by way of me working, and I couldn't allow them to hinder that process by stepping in and trying to get me to physically do something to them, because everybody, or Ernie's a hothead. Ernie's this, Ernie's that, but I think logic. Yeah, everybody can get upset. I think that I get upset, and I'm all the way upset. But in a situation like this, don't get mad when I pull a you on you. I'm gonna play the game that you play, and I'm not gonna push myself in a position to where I lose because I did the wrong thing when I wasn't doing anything to initially start this.
Giving them ammunition to use against you.
Exactly.
So, I don't know if you can answer this, but how's the atmosphere at work now? Like,
Oh, it's fine. I mean, you know what it is. The guys understand.
Did it change when you filed a lawsuit? Has it calmed down any? Or
Those guys are being held in check because of the lawsuit. Number one. So it's certain things that they can't do to me, but the thing is this: the department, the members are embracing it. Of course, they have their small faction of guys that's always been against Ernie Richardson, and that's going to always be there until the end of time. But the majority of the job is saying about time someone stood up and outright says something, not talked about it in the kitchen, but actually brought an actual suit to make them understand that what they were doing is not right. And Alpha Reed's motto is because I can, and he lives by that because nobody does anything to him because he's like the Teflon Don.
Right,
Everything,
right.
He gets away with murder. And for me, him and I have always not seen eye to eye because I'm always on the level of what's fair and just, not what's black and white. And that's where him and I have an issue. The biggest issue is the race stance that I take.
Well, and adding to that comment is the objection that I talked about before, where Ernie objected to the mayor about not promoting, not promoting the number one ranking officer who was white at that time, which is Lang, over Salahuddin himself. So it's the very person that Ernie objected to the mayor to, saying that would be illegal. I can't promote someone on the basis of skin color who happens to be white. Is Salahuddin himself, who is Ernie's supervisor and is the same guy that we're talking about that he has the problem with. So it's not a mystery why Salahuddin has a problem with him, considering Ernie's the one who was trying to not have him promoted, if you would, ahead of or at the same time as the number one officer at that time, which was Lang. So the grudge is I think is pretty apparent.
So now I wanted to just be clear. So I think you said it already. The people that have been retaliating, the people that you've complained about, to whoever it is, that you had to complain to.
Right.
Was there anything ever done? Was there any discipline? Whatever came out the reports that
Nothing.
you put in?
Nothing.
Okay.
And that's just real. I mean, nothing.
Okay.
Right, we're not aware of anyone who got suspended, if that's what you're asking, or who got demoted, reprimanded. I don't know if there's a written, reprimand or a verbal was given to them, but there's no action or curative action that we know of that was taken.
So
Was there a restraining order given to somebody or something like that?
I was told,
because I hear rumors, the streets talking.
We were told that St. John was given a restraining order, but if you read the Journal News report, he said he was given a be professional around Ernie Richardson clause, and he had to sign that. So whatever that meant, that's what he said in the paper. So I was told it was more of a restraining order. He said in the paper that I was only told to be professional when dealing with Ernie Richardson.
I did read that. Now I'm going to let you answer your question, but before, because of time, I want to make sure. Where is the lawsuit now? When did you file the lawsuit?
We filed the suit
March
3 weeks ago.
Okay.
March 5th.
So
March 5.
what is the
Council
status?
has it. They get time to file an answer. Their time is coming up. I'll be level with you here. Is I haven't even received a response. Meaning there was another attorney named Jeffrey Buss who was brought in after Terry O'Neill. So Terry O'Neill's firm was prior counsel. It is my understanding that the city of Mount Vernon didn't pay the legal bill for Terry's firm. And because they didn't pay it, either they withdrew from the work or stepped down from the work or
Right after that,
or
right
got
after
terminated from the work because maybe they were complaining about about wanting to be paid. For whatever reason, then they brought in Jeff Buss. I had some communications with him. I reached out to him and said, do you want to accept service for the mayor, for the city, for St. John, Salahuddin? Are you going to accept? Because he was already acting as their counsel. No reply. Nothing.
By accepting service that he'll receive.
Yeah, he would
whatever
receive
kind of
the
filing.
suit itself rather than sending a process server and hitting them with papers. That would you accept it and then essentially be answering and defending on behalf of the defendants. And I received no response. And to this day, I have no response. But procedurally, They have to file an answer, and then we engage in the discovery, which is a fun process. That's when you start taking
Well, I was going to
depositions.
ask you what's next.
Yeah.
What that you can tell us is next.
Well, we're going to depose all the defendants and a few other different outside witnesses. We've already collected affidavits of other people, essentially, that support the factual, their sort of fact witnesses and the factual narrative that is told in Ernie's complaint. So we have proactively obtained sworn testimony from people already, produced that and turned that over into discovery. But we will be taking depositions of everybody in this matter that's identified in the caption of the complaint and other persons outside of that as well.
I just want to point out to our listeners what you and I already know, and maybe our panelists here know, that Jeffrey Buss is an attorney, a private attorney who has often been hired by the city at great controversy because of his long-standing relationship with Joseph Spezio. From my perspective as an observer, it seems like a lot of legal work has been channeled to Buss as a kind of payback to Joe Spezio and his financial support that Spezio has given the Thomas administration. Everyone, this is one of the reasons why the mayor's administration continues to be mired in controversy, because the mayor exercises very poor judgment in many of the decisions that he's made, as is attested to by the description of the events that led to the filing of the suit, and indeed the role that Jeffrey Buss now has again in probably the umpteenth legal issue that confronts the city by getting, being contracted out.
I've never met Jeff Buss. We had cordial dealings. I don't know what type of difficult position he's been put in or not. I just know for whatever reasons he could not get back to me, and maybe the city didn't authorize him to do so. Maybe, again, they wouldn't retain him. The same way they had a money problem, is my understanding, I think, with Terry O'Neill's firm. But for whatever reasons, nothing has been done. That's a fact. But they will have to, obviously, by law, they will have to answer or file motions or whatever.
The Terry O'Neill thing came right after the controller said, "I will not pay your attorney's fees." Because remember, he said that he was blaming the controller for not paying bills, and she said, "I paid all the bills. I'm just not paying for your personal attorney." Right after that, we saw there was a switch in attorneys.
Yeah.
Right after that statement was made. So here's a question I'm trying to figure out how to ask. What would you like to see happen? I mean, what would you like the outcome to be? What would if you could have your way, what would the outcome you would like to see?
I would like to see our fire department flourish. And with the current chief of operations, we are going to have a big problem. Everything is too personal. And I think that, from a standpoint of a firefighter, we should have a job that's fair and just. And as firefighters, we should feel like our job is fair and just. Guys on the job are afraid to say what's right and what's wrong because of the retaliation that they might, get from the chief of the department. And I think that's horrible. That's a horrible way to have to come to work and deal with an extremist, and I'll use that word very strongly, an extremist, as a boss. That is not the way that things should be. And my administration, we tried to be as fair as we possibly could. We had an open door policy. His policy is my door is open, but only to certain people. And he has said that in meetings. He's just so. He's a horrible dude.
Well, I want to give you a chance for last words. We're coming to the end of the show. Any last words that you want to? Anything you didn't say that you want to get out? Anything you want known?
I wanted to be clear with the promotion of Salahuddin, that prior to his promotion, we promoted down the list 2 lieutenants and a captain. They were number 1 respectively on the list, and they were black, and no one objected to it. As soon as we tried to promote the number 1 captain to deputy chief, which was white, that's when the problems came on that race-based promotion. So we were allowed to go down the list, and fair and just, which I thought was the right thing. And when it came to this particular promotion, it was a no. So to me, as the head of the department, I totally had a problem with that, and I made it very clear to the mayor and to whoever else was listening that is not how my administration will work. And if it's going to be compromised because of that, I don't need to be here.
All right, and we going over right now, but I just want to, if you can ask one question, because you said the list. Now, I don't know if you can speak to this, but it's one of the stories that we've been working on. First, let me just say, with the retaliatory nature, I've been dealing with it a lot. There are a lot of complaints from inside the fire department, but the people can't put their names on it.
Right.
So I can't write the stories because they can't come do it on the record. But one of those things was there was a list, and a new list came out, but they held back that list or act like it didn't exist so they could keep promoting somebody from the old list. Can you speak real brief?
You
anything
know,
to that?
honestly, I haven't taken any of those promotional tests, so I don't even know I don't know anything about that.
Right.
You know, I'd rather.
Well,
say.
I want to thank. We literally are overtime. Like we literally are overtime. Like real quick. She's standing at the door waiting for me.
Your
Yo.
my understanding is that even though it may be ethical to select based according to score,
Right.
the civil service rules actually give the executive officer
1 and 3. 1 out of
That's
3.
right, and I do. Not that I disagree.
No, I get it.
With taking someone according to rank, so you might the cases. I think I hear where you're coming from. I just want to be sure that our audience members are aware of the actual legal requirements.
We adopted as an administration to go down the list, and it wasn't touched when we promoted down the list until we got to the deputy
I'm
chief.
going to have to end you right there. We were actually over time. I want to welcome you to come back any other time.
Thank you very much.
And when you could speak more, and as there's results in
Absolutely.
the thing. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been the Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com. Give me that real talk for the community since 2018. Check us out on WVOX tomorrow, 11 to 12. On the Black Westchester Power Hour, we will be talking to mayoral candidate, city council woman Delia Farquharson about the situation with her ballots. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.